people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
To the mother relay, we're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Ahead of what is to be her undisputed super featherweight title fight with the only other champion at the weight, Hearn Choi, in the first quarter of next year, Alicia Baumgardner was in attendance in Arizona for last night's action between Chocolatito and Gallo Estrada, and she was sent a bouquet of roses from her old buddy, former champion Michaela Mayer, who was also in attendance for the action. To that, Alicia Baumgardner had herself a gift readied for her old buddy, little chocolate bar, with a set of life instructions for the former champion Michaela Mayer, which reads, "Don't be a salty bitch." The rivalry between these two fighters is too good not to revisit at some point, even if it's not at super featherweight, even if it's 2 or 3 fights from now at lightweight or maybe even super lightweight. At some point down the line, they have to run it back. They have to do it again. Rivalries like this one are beneficial to the aforementioned fighters in more ways than they realize. The Morales to her Barrera, the Joe Frazier to a Muhammad Ali, the Felix Trinidad to the Oscar De La Hoya. In this sport, in this business, the hurt business, these kinds of rivalries capture the attention of the Gentiles, the community, the boxing community at large. They really do. Think about how long it took to finally get Amir Khan and Kell Brook in the ring with each other. All those years, to the point to where you started to think the fight would never happen. And when it finally did, even though both fighters by that time, their separate careers, they'd already piled up several losses, and their best days really were behind them. On the strength of their rivalry, the interest to see them fight was still there, even if they were past it, and even if it wasn't for some sort of alphabet title. It was the rivalry that sold the fight. That rings true when it comes to Alicia and Michaela, with the difference being we already got to see these two fighters in their prime. We've already had the privilege of seeing both fighters fight each other once in their prime. Will we get to see them fight again? We might. Attention now turns to Alicia's bid to become an undisputed champion in the very near future, nearer than you think. Inside intel seems to indicate that the Baumgardner versus Choi undisputed super featherweight title fight will be going down late next month. And it could be going down in the tri-state area as a doubleheader.
Tri-state area? You talking about New York City?
There are at least 2 undisputed title fights that Matchroom is currently working on. I'll let you use your imagination as to what the other one is. And if the intel checks out, Alicia and Hearn, they could be sharing the ring late next month. It's just what I was told. So what does Michaela Mayer, the former unified super featherweight champion, what does she do now?
And Beatrice Ferreira, fantastic. I just said to Colm, I think Michaela Mayer should fight Beatrice Ferreira. I think that's a great fight.
Unbeaten Brazilian Olympian Beatrice Ferreira, who was in action last night as part of that show, went down in Arizona, advanced to a professional record of 2 wins, no losses with 1 knockout. Eddie Hearn thinks she's ready for a Michaela Mayer fight. That's ballsy. And Beatrice Ferreira, I see the future of the super featherweight division. Long after Alicia Baumgardner and Michaela Mayer have moved up in weight and go on to do whatever it is they're going to go on to do, I can see Beatrice Ferreira, given her pedigree, her power, and her ferocity, I can see her having the run of the place. Especially now that the undisputed super featherweight title fight is right around the corner. It's really just a little over a month away. And as stated, if the intel checks out, Alicia Baumgardner will be locking horns with Hearn Choi, New York City, tri-state area, late next month.
Fucking gorgeous.
Beyond that, I don't anticipate that Alicia Baumgardner would have much reason to stick around at super featherweight. She could always run it back with Michaela Mayer. She could do that beyond the Hearn Choi fight, or she could move up in weight to super lightweight, see if she can't take on the winner of Taylor versus Serrano 2 once they get that fight over the line.
The great thing about the Mayer rivalry is that it's not necessarily about alphabet titles. It's not even necessarily about belts anymore. It's about the bad blood between them and how it sells.
It's about bragging rights, and now both fighters, both Alicia and Michaela Mayer, irrespective of what they go on to do, they have that to resort to. They have that in their back pocket, that their rivalry isn't about a belt or belts. It's about bragging rights. I look forward to seeing them run it back at some point. We then come to the main event of that same card that Alicia Baumgardner and Michaela Mayer were in attendance for. The long-awaited, long-anticipated trilogy fight between Chocolatito and Gallo Estrada. And I gave the first 2 rounds to Estrada, who was light on his feet, moving around that ring, and flustering Chocolatito. I guess that Chocolatito was expecting for Gallo to start off.
Looks like he was expecting him to spend more time in the pocket.
In the early goings of the fight, you got the sense that Chocolatito was not anticipating having to corner a moving target. So I gave the first 2 rounds to Gallo. I gave the third to Chocolatito. Busier, cleaner shots.
I gave the 3rd round to Chocolatito, but the 4th round was a bit nip and tuck. It seemed like a swing round to me. I decided to swing it to Chocolatito,
But it could have gone to Gallo. It very well could have gone to Gallo. I gave Gallo the 5th round and the 6th round. He's better in those rounds, better throughout. Good aggression from Chocolatito, but Estrada's movement was clearly troubling him in those rounds. I gave the 7th round to Chocolatito off of his combinations and clean shots landed.
At this time, after 7 rounds, I had Juan Francisco Estrada up by a point. I had him up by a round. In the 8th round, I had it a tie score, so I gave that 8th round to Chocolatito.
4 rounds to 4 after 8 rounds. 5 rounds to 4 after the 9th. I gave that 9th round to Chocolatito, who seemed busier throughout.
At this point, I had Chocolatito leading by a round. I gave Chocolatito the 9th and 10th rounds.
6-4 after 9 rounds. 7-4 after 10. The 12th round, once again, was a close round, was a tight round. It's all about what you liked. And, you could have just as easily given that round to Gallo. You could have given it to Choco. But it's strange.
You think about the co-main event to the main event, Ray Martinez's fight. Ray Martinez, who was faced with a moving target the same way that Chocolatito was faced with a moving target. And Ray Martinez's come-forward aggression was rewarded by those judges.
Yet Chocolatito's was not. The dichotomy of both fights was very similar. I will admit that Chocolatito fought a better version of Ray Martinez's fight, though all the same, they were in a situation where they had to try and pin down a moving target to get off clean shots. And Ray Martinez got all the consideration that Chocolatito did not get.
You had people in the comments calling me biased because I scored the fight for Chocolatito, but let me tell you something. I ain't from Nicaragua.
Biases? What are you talking about biases? Me and Chocolatito, we don't fly the same flag. Nationalism and tribalism, it doesn't even come into it.
Bias? What are you talking about bias? Let's pretend that you and Gallo don't fly the same flag while you try to accuse me of being too partial.
I will say that Gallo performed a lot better in the 3rd installment, the 3rd fight, than he did in the 2nd. The 2nd fight, over a year ago, I felt that clearly went to Chocolatito. I felt that was a clear win for Chocolatito, whereas this fight was more nip and tuck. It was a closer match, it was, but it left a bad taste in my mouth.
It did, because when Ray Martinez comes forward, when he's the aggressive fighter opposite the ring, a moving target, he gets all the consideration in the world, but when Chocolatito does it, he doesn't get any.
It left a bad taste in my mouth because when Saul Carmona spends the entirety of the fight on the balls of his feet, fighting on the fly, the judges feel that he lost on that premise. But when Gallo Estrada does it, you award him the victory.
The scoring criteria, the logic is not consistent when the dichotomy of the both of these fights, the co-main event and the main event.
The dichotomy of the both of those fights was similar. One guy who's using the ring, moving lateral, staying on the move, staying on the fly, and another guy who's coming forward and being aggressive.
I'm of the opinion that Chocolatito fought a better version of the fight that Ray Martinez was trying to fight. And where Ray was awarded a victory, Chocolatito wasn't.
So I see it. Gallo Estrada did not want to engage. He spent the majority of this fight on the balls of his feet, getting guided around the ring by Chocolatito.
And many of his flurries, the ones he threw as he was trying to fight Chocolatito off, most of those punches landed on the arms and gloves. The cleaner punches, the cleaner work, was actually coming from Chocolatito, who was the man coming forward, being aggressive, and throwing punches in bunches. You didn't give Choco the same consideration you just gave Ray the fight before.
Left a bad taste in my mouth because you didn't give Choco no consideration in the second fight, and you didn't give Choco no consideration in the third fight.
Even if Gallo Estrada did better in the third fight than he did in the second, even if he was more well-prepared this time than the last time, all the same, he's getting the benefit of the doubt every single round.
So if anybody's biased, it's those judges. Whenever Gallo's in the ring, he gets the benefit of the doubt every single time. There's your bias.
Too much time on the back foot, too much time moving lateral, cost Saul Carmona the Ray Martinez fight. That's exactly what Juan just did.
But when Juan does it, he gets the W. Was it an entertaining fight? Of course it was. It was a pleasure to watch. But I'd be lying to you if I told you that I'm not raw about it. I am raw about it. I'm raw about the second fight. I'm even more raw about the third.
Chocolatito got jerked, man. He got screwed.
Don't try to convince me that I'm the one that's partial when you and Gallo have something in common. When you fly the same flag he does, you're going to accuse me of being biased.
Give it a rest, Steve Farhood.
And finally, in men's lightweight news, Gervonta Davis released a bit of information, email correspondence with none other than Eddie Hearn, who tried to bring him into the fray, tried to get him to come over to the DAZN side of things as soon as he heard that his relationship with Mayweather Promotions had come to an end. An offer worth $10 million guaranteed, plus pay-per-view bonuses to do the Ryan Garcia fight with him on DAZN instead of Showtime.
Why would DAZN have Eddie Hearn send email correspondence to Gervonta Davis about a Garcia fight when Oscar is Ryan Garcia's promoter, not Eddie?
Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but then again, Eddie Hearn is more DAZN's point man than Oscar is. Many people say that Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy Promotions are really just Matchroom's ugly little sister when it comes to their relationship with DAZN. That Eddie Hearn really is more DAZN's point man when it comes to boxing and negotiating big boxing fights, big boxing matches. He's their point man more than Oscar is.
And to tell you the truth, Oscar's involvement in bringing Gervonta Davis over to the DAZN platform on the premise that he is a network and promotional free agent, that doesn't actually require Oscar's involvement. It looks a lot like what Eddie wanted to do was get him over there. The only part that stands out is that he included Ryan in the email.
Even if he were able to get Gervonta Davis over to the Matchroom side of things and sign him to some kind of a deal, he can't promise him Ryan Garcia, not on his own. That in and of itself would require
the involvement of both Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy Promotions. That bit of it, the saving grace in a scenario like that would be that Ryan wants the fight and Oscar does as well. Them both being on the same platform would make the fight easier to negotiate, at least in theory.
A guaranteed $10 million purse. I'll tell you now that $10 million guaranteed, $10 million up front. That's not what you see reported when it comes to Gervonta Davis's fights. The fight with Isaac Cruz, Rolly Romero, Yuriorkis Gamboa. Gervonta Davis, at least not based on reports, was guaranteed that kind of scratch, that kind of cash.
Now this is where people get confused. It is possible that Gervonta Davis makes something in the neighborhood of $10 million total between his guarantee, sponsorships, endorsements, and the upside of a pay-per-view. It's possible that he's getting something in that neighborhood.
Maybe even a little more than that, but that's with all of the added extras, the upside of the pay-per-view and whatever sponsorships and endorsements he might have. Eddie Hearn and DAZN were willing to offer him that and then some.
That on top of the upside of a pay-per-view with bonuses.
Gervonta Davis isn't being guaranteed a contract minimum of $10 million per fight. They're not paying this kid $10 million guaranteed to fight the likes of Isaac Cruz and Rolly Romero.
They're not, because if they were, that would make every single one of his pay-per-views, every single one of his fights, a fiscally risky endeavor. They keep the guarantees low and the operational costs low, so it's easier to break even and thereby easier to get to a pay-per-view upside. Gervonta Davis's fights don't cost all that much money to put on.
Because he's not fighting in high-profile fights with high-profile opponents that would require big guarantees of their own. His fights and his opponents, they don't cost all that much.
And even if he himself is getting something in the neighborhood of $10 million, that's with all the added extras. He's not getting that up front.
Gervonta Davis has since deleted these tweets and this email correspondence that he posted himself, likely because he thought that he was exposing Eddie Hearn, when in reality, he was just exposing himself. They're offering you a lot of money to go over there, and you claim that your relationship with Mayweather Promotions is all but done. And based on this offer, there's no reason not to. There's no reason to not go over there.
Not unless you're still under Al Heyman's thumb. And I'd wager that he still is, because parting ways with Mayweather Promotions does not necessarily mean he's parting ways with either Showtime or Al Heyman. Those relationships may still be intact.
Even if the relationship with Mayweather Promotions and Leonard Ellerbe isn't. I told you weeks ago, just because he leaves that outfit, that doesn't mean a whole lot is going to change. Leaving Mayweather Promotions does not necessarily mean he's leaving Al Heyman.
This was all in reference to some tweets Gervonta Davis posted just the other day, doping concerns in reference to what's supposed to be the Ryan Garcia fight. And I can only tell you now what I told you before. If you're that worried about it, just incorporate VADA testing.
If you do end up fighting this guy, if you make it past Hector Garcia, then you can worry about implementing anti-doping tests ahead of what's supposed to be the Ryan Garcia fight.
But you talking about this now just reads like cold feet. Makes you look nervous.
Maybe Eddie Hearn made you an offer, and maybe he wanted to act as the liaison that helps you migrate from Showtime over to DAZN. Maybe he did, but based on the current set of negotiations you're in, you're dealing with Oscar. You're dealing with Oscar in reference to his fighter. Eddie is not a party to what you actually have going on.
Eddie has no involvement in the current situation that's supposed to result in the Ryan Garcia versus Gervonta Davis fight next year. He really ain't got nothing to do with that, even if he did make Gervonta an offer.
Which is hardly new news. He's been making offers to PBC fighters to migrate over to DAZN since DAZN debuted in the American market.
There's nothing new about that.
Hardly anything to expose that Eddie Hearn was interested in signing Gervonta Davis, who claimed he was a network and promotional free agent.
You think we didn't know that?
Because we already didn't know that he was interested in bringing Gervonta to the DAZN platform. I mean, we gathered that much when he tried to make the Tevin Farmer fight 2 or 3 years ago.
All this email correspondence shows us is what we already knew, that Eddie is willing to do what he's got to do to get Gervonta on the DAZN platform.
And it's Gervonta Davis's prerogative to either keep fighting on Showtime or go somewhere else. But as far as this is no smoking gun.
This is nothing. We already figured this much.